Hi guys, Paul Michaels from Real Dog Training and Big Game Indicating Dogs. So the topic for today's video is training before you hunt. A lot of guys typically basically get a dog, just hangs around for a while, it's a pet, and then they just take it hunting and sort of go from there. This is the worst possible way to go about training a hunting dog. It's maybe a little bit different for a pig dog, because a pig dog is all about drive and just flat out, and there's no control needed whatsoever. Anytime you need the remotest bit of control out of a dog, like a bird dog or a deer dog, you need to have all your training fully set up before you even set foot in the field or take it hunting or expose it to game. It's hugely important, probably one of the most important things, period. And probably with either a bird dog or a deer dog, 99% of the problems I see in my boot camp dogs, one-on-one sessions, are all due to taking a dog hunting before it's ready. So there's a real common saying that I hear all the time that's totally wrong about deer dogs, big game indicating dogs. People say, oh, you're going to lose a few at the start, but you'll get them back later on. I totally disagree with that. That's one way to do it, but it's the hardest way to do it, it's the worst way to do it, it's the least effective way to do it, and it gets the worst end result. So what they're saying is the dog, the dog's not trained properly, it's not ready, and the first couple of hunts it's a bit of a mission, it sort of stuffs it up a bit, but later on it'll take you to more deer, so you get them back, you stuff a few up at the start, get them back at the end. You're far better off, and you can do it, get the dog 100% ready. So a dog's first hunt and its first indicate and its first deer should be just textbook perfect. In a lot of ways it should be one of its best ever. Dogs repeat whatever brings them success. So it's really important to set them up in a way that they'll carry out the hunt and you shoot their first deer over them in the exact way that you want to be doing it forever. So for an indicating dog, that's walking in front, leading us in, staying really nice and slow, sneaky, locking up, shooting the deer, the dog steady after the shot, and then it quietly follows it up after the shot and takes us to the deer. If you don't have your dog doing that, all of those things I just said, and you shoot a deer over it, you're teaching the dog to do it that way. So if the dog's a bit excited, a bit fast, a bit messy, you shoot the deer, it breaks at the shot and runs over to it, you've just taught the dog that that's how it succeeds, and that's what the dog will want to do later on. I call that training with success. So like I said, dogs just repeat whatever action or behavior brings them success. Training with success is one of your most powerful, if not the most powerful training tools you've got. It just really sets behaviors and ways of doing things in stone. And that's why it's so important to train a dog properly so its first hunt is perfect, and that's what you've set in stone. That's using training with success and the fact that dogs repeat whatever brings them success. So if you can set up a dog to do it the way you want it to be done, and you take it out there and you shoot a deer over it like that, done, set in stone, done deal. That's what the dog's going to want to do next time. And if you can repeat that a few times, get the ball rolling, you're done. You're home and hose. And the thing is you can do it. It's actually quite easy to train a dog so its first deer is perfect. It's the most enjoyable way of doing it. It's the most effective way of doing it. And there's another huge side to this too, which is, it gives you the best end result. So what tends to happen when people don't train their dogs properly and they take them hunting, the first time they get onto deer sign, the dog starts tracking, or there's a deer moving around the bush out in front of them, and because the dog's not trained properly, it doesn't have range set up, it doesn't have nice quiet stop commands, and the whole thing's just not set up properly, the dog starts doing stuff wrong. So the handler starts putting pressure on the dog, and usually if you're trying to shoot a deer, it's sort of like, cut it out. You're sort of trying to yell quietly and growl the dog and whisper at it to get it to do stuff. So what you're doing there is the dog's very first point of contact on deer, and the first time it tries to hunt a deer, you're putting pressure on it, growling at it, telling it off. Half the time the dog stuffs it up, chases a deer, you go and grab the dog and give it a big rack up, or even worse, you give it a hiding or something. And so what you're doing there is the first point of contact on a deer, you're telling the dog off. And the thing is with big game indicating dogs is a lot of indications and a lot of things they do, you know, for example, a young dog tracking its first deer, it's quite often very subtle. And you can't always even tell that a deer's been there straight away. The dog just might be tracking, and you might track it for 100 meters, come across some soft ground and identify that, hey, the dog's actually tracking a deer here, so it'll carry on. So what's actually happening a lot of the time is someone's trying to do something with their dog in the bush. The dog sort of is doing a lot of sniffing around. It's all over the place, all messy, because you haven't even trained it to walk properly. You're trained to range. So you don't even know when the dog's indicating, and you're trying to train the dog in the bush. So you're like, get in here and putting pressure on it. You might have it pulling on a lead, or doing whatever you're trying to do to control your dog because you haven't trained it yet. But you're doing it while it's hunting. And you might be doing something, and the dog might pull away too far because it's smelling a deer, and you growl it to come back and carry on another direction. Well, you've just growled your dog from trying to hunt a deer. So it's incredibly counterproductive. And this is where you got to get a lot of misinformation from people saying that it takes years and years for an indicating dog to start performing properly. And it definitely does if you don't train it properly and just take it down to the bush and you try to train it in the environment with the animals. Because what's actually happening there is you're putting pressure on the dog and growling it while it's trying to hunt deer, and it takes years and years to recover from that before the dog starts hunting properly. And that's how you end up with guys that have an indicating dog that won't track, or one that will track really well but not wind. And that's because when they started off, they were making mistakes that they weren't even realizing they were making, growling at the dog for pulling too far away, or putting pressure on it for doing something because they haven't trained it properly, because they're trying to sort it out. They're trying to lose a few at the start and get them back at the end. But you can actually create problems in the dog that it'll never recover from. So hugely important. All your training is 100% done before you go in the bush, and the dog's first deer should be perfect, and you set that in stone and you carry on from there. It's the best way to do it, easiest way to do it, and it's most effective. So that's it. Training before you hunt. I'm Paul Michaels from Big Game Indicating Dogs. We'll see you next time.